All right, WBCN, the Rock of Boston, Dave here, and a unique opportunity to talk with a true pioneer in the rock industry and a guitar player who has paved the way for many, many to come, and that's Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
And we're escaping the heat in a nice air-conditioned facility. Now, you guys are out on the road for the first time in a year here in the States with a brand new project that has Cozy Powell back in the band on drums, Neil Murray, and Tony Martin, correct, on the line?
Yeah, that's right, and also, of course, Jeff Nichols.
As the standard Sabbath keyboardist. Yeah. And so this tour got underway in the United States or out in Europe?
Well, actually, we've done a couple of days in Europe, a couple of big festivals in Europe, one in Sweden and one in Switzerland. And then we had a few days off, and then we came out to the States, and we've been here now for 2 weeks, just over. And we're here now for another 3 weeks. We finish off in California.
You guys recorded the album in the States, or?
We started off recording in Liverpool, which is very unusual for us to actually record in Liverpool, but we thought we would, and the studio was good, and we thought it would be a bit different. And then we went to, where did we go from then? We went to LA to start mix. We were going to mix it in LA, so we got to LA, well I did anyway, and it done nothing but rain, so everywhere got flooded. It was the time when all the floods were there. So that had to be abandoned because the studio got flooded.
Oh.
So I came back home, and we went into a place in England called Ridge Farm, and we mixed it there.
Most of the material you write yourself, or is it something that you do with Tony Martin on vocals?
Yeah, most of it. I generally come up with the riffs, and what we'll do, we go into a rehearsal situation and stay there for like a live-in for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it may take. And in this case, it was 3 weeks, and we just jammed out riffs really, and just kept coming out with riffs, and we taped them all, and then decided which ones we liked and which ones we didn't like, and then gave them to Tony, and Tony would work on them, and yeah, it happened very, very quick, really.
And then he would add lyrics to these after it's been jammed up.
Well, we'd jam along first, and he'd go, "Oh, I like this one," and he'd start singing on it, and we'd make it into a song within, no time at all.
So the band loads into a rehearsal space and just starts working on new riffs, or do you play some of the songs that you already have in the Sabbath catalog as well?
No, it's usually new stuff, and I mean, I've got thousands and thousands of riffs at home in my studio where I just go in and when I do get time, I'll occasionally pop in and put stuff down and put it on a tape, and I'll throw it into a box, and it never sees the light of day usually because I've got so many of them. And usually when we go into rehearsal, I don't bother to go back on the old stuff. I'll come up with new stuff. And if I ever do get stuck, I can always go back.
You have boxes. I remember that the last time I got to speak with you in 1992, you said that whenever you just thought of a riff, you'd quickly tape it, and that you had many stored and just like on tape.
I have, yes. There's probably some really good ones, but I'll just put them on a cassette and into a box they go, and I'll have to sort them out one of these days. I've got hundreds of them now.
Tony's riff archive of unused riffs for Sabbath. And then when you work a set list out of the new material, now when you're finished recording, do you figure out some of the older material that you're going to add to the set then, or is it something you do when you get on the road?
Well, usually when we've actually finished the whole recording procedure, then we start thinking of going on the road, and we'll talk about what we're going to do basically as a tour. What set we're going to do, and that's the difficult part because there is so many songs. I mean, there's well over 200 Sabbath songs. And it's hard to pick which ones to do live. I mean, we can do 99% of them live, so particularly with Tony. So it's hard to decide which ones to do, and that is the problem. What we did before, we went through the fan club and in Europe and got them to make a list of their favourite sort of set. And then we sort of put what we could together from the different ones and made up a set list, even though some of their set list was about 3 or 4 hours.
How long is the Sabbath show this time? About 90 minutes or so?
It's about that, yeah. And it does make it difficult to see what to play. If we played one track from each album, we'd still be there for like 4 hours, you know. So
Yeah, it's a tremendous, it's a wealth of material, no doubt. There's plenty of music in the Sabbath catalog. Certainly, are you aware of the Sabbath tribute that went on last year? Is that something you've gotten to hear? Or?
I'm aware of it because I played on it.
You did the Bullring Brummies, or?
Yeah, I was originally on that, and I put a new riff in the middle of it for them. But as it went on, my record company wouldn't give me permission for some reason to play on it, and I don't know why that is. But as far as I was concerned, they weren't going to use that track, but they did, and my name's not mentioned on it. Somebody else mentioned on it. We won't go into that.
It's got to be frustrating, though.
It is a bit, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think about the other versions of some of those songs on there? I mean, we have bands like White Zombie out on the road now, and Corrosion of Conformity. A lot of bands all claiming Sabbath hands down as their number one influence, and then they laid a track down on this album. Any favorites from the album, or new bands that are favorites?
Well, there's some good bands on the album. I'd like to hear them live and see what sort of their show's like, because I'm interested in that. But yeah, they've done some good versions of the Sabbath stuff. Originally, when that album idea was mentioned to me, it was there was going to be Metallica were going to do a track, and Soundgarden and Pantera. But of course, they had the same problem as me. The record company wouldn't give them permission to appear on it, so which is sad. But I think Pantera, they went ahead and used Planet Caravan on their own album anyway, so.
I was just going to mention that they did a tremendous version of Planet Caravan. What do you think? You like that one a lot?
I do, yeah. Well, it's very similar to the original one, really. So, yeah.
Who wrote Planet Caravan?
I did.
And the flute in the song, you as well?
That's me, yes.
Something you picked up from Ian Anderson in the brief stint in Tull, or?
It is actually, yes. I thought, I'll have to have a go at that. So I did, and I used to play flute originally when we used to play in Germany, and we used to do a couple of 2 or 3 different flute numbers. But I don't play it now.
But Planet Caravan, so you wrote the Planet, and how about the vocals, the lyrics in the song?
Oh no, Geezer wrote the lyrics, yeah. But all the music, I wrote all the music from day one.
There are a lot of those really untraditional Sabbath songs which seem to have, been etched into a lot of people's memory. You know how Planet Caravan gets put on a Pantera album this many years later. And there's a number of other songs like Solitude. How about that one? Was that one that you wrote, or?
Yeah, as I say, I write all the music from day one, and all the old Sabbath stuff was all my riffs and stuff.
And Geezer predominantly would do the lyrics?
Generally, Geezer would do the lyrics with Ozzy doing some of them, and Ozzy would do like the vocal melody. Usually, as a rule, Ozzy would generally follow the riff, depending on what track it was. If it was like Iommi, he'd follow the riff with his vocal melody.
And so when you were adding additional instruments to Sabbath, we mentioned Jeff Nichols and the keyboard arrangements. Was there a point, when was it that you first decided you were going to augment the 4-man lineup? Was it probably Volume 4 in that era?
It was round about, I think Sabbath. I used to play keyboards on some of the earlier albums. Sabbath, I think Volume 4, and that was probably the last one I played on, I think, maybe. I can't remember. I did play on afterwards. But we used, I think, on Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, we used Rick Wakeman on that one.
On Sabra Cadabra, is that the...
Yeah, Sabra Cadabra. And then I think we used Don Airy on one of the tracks on Never Say Die album. So, and then I play the rest, really. When
you're in a studio recording these, or when you did these various albums, and especially the new one, is there an environment you're looking for when you go to record? Like, a lot of bands seem to have there's a certain setup they want right as they go to print to tape. Carlos Santana has this vision that it's like a photograph. You've kind of got to get it while it's going, and you get that one take of it. What would your opinion be about studio environments for Black Sabbath?
Well, I suppose it's hard to say on that one, because we've been in all sorts I've tried everywhere. And the studio environments, we've gone from West Indies to, Montserrat Studios, which is absolutely beautiful, to, as I say, Liverpool, which is real city, So we have been to various environments in the country scenes and in cities everywhere, But once you're in the studio and the doors are shut, there you go, off you go. It could be anywhere in the world. And Yeah, I suppose it does make a difference to an extent, really. Certainly, if you want to get out and have a bit of fresh air, or go for a swim or something like that, or go down the beach or in between, and which we don't normally now. I mean, this last album, we done that very quick. The old album was done it within 10 days, recorded and done, finished.
And the road band played all the tracks on the album.
Absolutely, yeah. Cozy Powell, Neil Murray, Jeff Nichols, Tony, and myself.
Well, let's talk about Cozy here for a minute. Cozy was in the band and did the Headless Cross album and the, correct my pronunciation if I'm wrong, the Tear album?
Yeah.
The Tear album in 1990. And then we didn't have Cozy in the picture, and 2 more releases. And what's the story? Cozy had an accident with a horse or something?
Yes, he did. He's got horses at home, and what happened? One of his horses had a heart attack, and it fell, and it fell on Cozy, and crushed him against the wall, and he injured his back very bad, and so it put him out of action for a while. And shortly after that, when he was sort of getting better, he went out. He was driving back from somewhere in his Mercedes, and he turned that over and wrote that off, and so he caused himself another injury. So he didn't have much luck at that point. So at that time we had to bring somebody else in, which was unfortunate. But I think Cozy works better with this lineup than it would have done with the Dio lineup, because quite honestly, Dio and Cozy don't get on at all very well.
Yeah, that's what I understood actually about that whole 1992 era, was that they didn't really get along, even though they did do the Rainbow project together when Rainbow was in their prime. Was Sabbath, how long have you known Cozy?
A long time, 20 odd years. I've known him since we started Sabbath, and he was with 1 or 2 bands around from the same area as where I live, and then he went with Jeff Beck, and he's been Gary Moore, and he's been with a few, Cozy, and of course, White Snake he was with for a few years. So I've known him a long time. And
you first talked about doing a project with him back then, or was it more of a recent thing about working together?
No, I talked to him quite a long time ago, actually. I called him up when, I think it was about 19, when Ozzy just left, I think, or Bill had just left, yeah, that's right. And I phoned Cozy up, and I also found David Coverdale up at the time, because we were going to try and put something together there. And what happened was they had just, strangely enough, got together themselves, David Coverdale and Cozy, to start Whitesnake. So Dave Coverdale's words to me were, "You bastard, why didn't you call me before?" He said, "I've just signed this deal now." So it happened that we didn't go any further. Then we went ahead with the Ronnie thing, and off we went.
And the Ronnie thing, we get to October, November 1992, kind of big months for Black Sabbath, and I myself made a trip to Costa Mesa, California, and saw both of those shows. And so what went down, Tony, that it went from a Dehumanizer situation to Rob Halford sitting in with you, doing 2 sets that pulled out all kinds of songs from the archives, Symptom of the Universe, and material like that, and then finally to do this reunion show, later the same night?
Well, what happened was Ozzy was doing his last tour. Supposedly, he was going to retire, and as the Ozzy Osbourne band, anyway. And so he asked us if we'd play on the set, and we said yeah. We said we would, and thinking that Ronnie would agree to that. And of course, Ronnie said, I'm appearing on that, And we says, why? He said, I just don't want to be on it. And so we thought we'd leave it for a bit, and maybe he'll come round and change his mind after a bit, because we mentioned it a month before or something like that, 3 weeks before or something. Anyway, the time got closer and closer, and we said, do we change your mind yet? He says, no, I'm not doing it. And so basically, we'd agreed to do it, and everything was going ahead. So we had no alternative really but to go on and do it, and we had to find somebody who was going to sing. And as soon as Rob Halford heard that Ronnie wasn't going to do it, he called us and says, "Look, I'd love to do it." And so that's what we done, and we went to Phoenix, and where Rob lives, and we had a day's rehearsal, and he was really good. I was really impressed with what he'd done and how he really got it together. Very professional, very, very, on the case, and really excited about the whole thing, and it was really good. We had a great time, and I loved it. I really enjoyed doing the set with him.
Yes, it was. Both nights were great, and you even changed the set a little bit.
Yeah, we changed the set round for the second night, so yeah, it was really. I say we thoroughly enjoyed that. It was real good fun.
For fans, it was a high point for sure.
Well, it was certainly a one-off. It's something that you'd never see ordinarily. I mean, nobody has ever come into Sabbath and sang a one-off like that.
Yeah, a little guest shot.
Yeah, especially as a vocalist, as a guest shot.
And then the final clincher, 4 songs: Black Sabbath, Fairies Wear Boots, Iron Man, and Paranoid. About 30-minute set. Was that rehearsed in the afternoon once? Any run-through at all with the original band?
No, we didn't run through it because we didn't have time. And so it was a bit nervy, really, because we hadn't played with Bill for a lot of years, many years. Well, we hadn't played with Bill for 13 years, actually. Well, it was 10, 11 years at that point. 12 years, something like that. Anyway, it was very difficult because we thought, wonder what it's going to be like, and we didn't have a sound check or anything, and it was bloody hard. And we went on, and we just done it, and it sort of fell into place. And it went. It was good to do that. I think we enjoyed doing it.
Was there a moment it looked like the original Sabbath was going to come back around? Because here there was such a media blitz of anything you heard about the band was that was maybe the kickoff for something.
Yeah, I suppose there was. Yeah, it was talked about afterwards, and in fact, it was mentioned before we actually done the show. But it was talked more about as we afterwards, and there was a thing going on for quite a long time, constant. I was talking to Ozzy really on a day-to-day basis after that, and we were talking of it was Ozzy's office and his ideas to ask us if we put the lineup back together again, and we said, well, yeah, we could certainly try it and do a couple of weeks. The idea was to do 2 or 3 weeks of big stadium dates, and so we said, we'd do it. And from that, of course, it got more involved. Then you got managements. Each one of us had got a manager, and that's 4 managers. Then we got 4 different record companies. So it was a bloody nightmare. And then each one of us has got a lawyer. So we had all these people all arguing about what we want. And of course, it turns out in the end of the day, it was Ozzy wanted more money than anybody else, and it got silly. It got into a financial thing as opposed to just let's get out and do it and split it, And so with all these things going backwards and forwards, nobody'd agree on anything. And then after 8 months of negotiations, finally we all agreed, or they all agreed, whoever they are. And then Ozzy said he didn't want to do it. So and Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, and myself had signed the contract, and sent it to Ozzy, his office, and they pulled out. So that was it.
And it collapsed there.
And it collapsed right there, yeah.
Bill Ward, you're still close with, or you communicate regularly with him?
Yeah, I do. In fact, Bill actually did play with us not long back in Brazil. We done a South American few dates there, big festivals, 100,000s.
With Kiss, I believe, at some.
That's right, yeah. And I was telling Bill about it on the phone, and because I speak to him from England, he's in California. And I said, oh, yeah, we're doing these shows coming up. And he went, oh, I'd love to do that. And I said, do you want to do it? And he said, can I? I said, would you like to play on it? He said, oh, I'd love to. He said, that'd be just great for me, So I said, well, you can then if you want. You can come out and play. And he went, oh, what do I do? Meet you there? I said, no, you better come to England and we better rehearse, really, this time, because we've got to do a complete show, and you won't know any of the numbers. And so he came to England, and we rehearsed for a few days, and then went to South America and done the show. But Bill didn't have enough time to absorb all the new stuff, and so really we've resorted to playing a complete old set of Sabbath stuff, which was a bit of a shame, but I'd like to have done some more of the new stuff. But it was good. It was a different thing. It was certainly good for Bill. It was different for him to get out and play because he hadn't actually been on the stage playing a full set for 13 years since we'd done Heaven and Hell.
Bill Ward, a figure that everyone has kind of, wanted to know what has been going on with him since the Sabbath days, and he did that solo project, and then he resurfaced there. Something that fans sometimes get confused that I thought I'd take the moment to clear up since I have you here. NIB, originally a nickname for Bill Ward, Nibby, something like that, for when you set his beard on fire, his pen nib-like beard. That's
right, yeah, he used to have this. We used to have little nicknames for each other, and Bill had this pointed beard, and we used to call him, he looked like a pen. His whole face looked like a pen nib. And so we just called it Nib. We used to call him Nibby, and as well as other things, Smelly and various other things. But Nibby sort of stuck, and so we just sort of call a track NIB, Nib.
So the track existed without a title, and then you were looking for one, and so how did you actually slap N.I.B. down as the track?
Well, I don't think we did really. We just put Nib, and somebody put dots in it. So
has that been the case often with Sabbath, that you guys have done it, and then like somebody else has come along and like tried to package it with some kind of like dark imagery slant, or what's the case there?
I wouldn't say so. No, we a lot of Sabbath stuff has been a bit tongue in cheek within the title tracks, and some of them have been like, we call one track a bit of finger, which was because I've chopped the end of my fingers off. We called it that, and just silly titles really, and put things in brackets, like Going Insane, Radio Rental, which means nuts, and
Wheels of Confusion, including the straightener or something like that.
Yeah, well, some of those, a couple of them were added actually, just as extra titles, and that has been done, not particularly by us, but yeah, we've had. In fact, when the album came out at one point, there was these tracks, and we went, "What's this?" We never knew what this track was, and they'd added another track title to it.
The record company had just gone and added it?
Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned different titles. Was the original title for the Paranoid album going to be War Pigs, and then that changed?
Yeah, the title was War Pigs, but what happened, they immediately banned that name of that for an album, because I suppose, I don't know why really. I mean, they wouldn't today, but then, them days, they banned anything, and in fact, Sabbath had a big problem getting played, particularly in England with the BBC. It was so, white collar there, and so upper, they just didn't want to play anything to do with us at all. And then, of course, when we had Paranoid come out and it went straight to #1, they had no alternative, but they had to play us on the top, because they used to have a chart show every week, and they had to play us, and we had to appear on this Top of the Pops, it's called in England, which is was a big show, and it was all over the country, and so we played this Top of the Pops, and they hated us. They did. The DJ who used to, he was a radio DJ as well, and he used to slag us on the radio, saying, how are these bands, how this band, I don't play this band. And of course he had to introduce us on this show, which he hated.
Where did you find that core support then? Because Sabbath is known for the that core audience that was so loyal. And was it here in the States at first?
No, it was Europe, as a matter of fact. We used to play a lot of places. In fact, we used to play in Germany. We started off at the Star Club in Hamburg.
You did like a residency there. You played there like many sets a night.
We did, yeah. We used to play 5 sets a night and 7 sets on the weekend every night. And we played there for like 6 weeks, and then we'd go to Sweden or Switzerland and play like another place for 3 weeks, and then somewhere else for another 2 weeks. But it was good for us because it got us together, and all these different sets we had to play all night. We didn't have enough songs, so we used to make them up as we went on, which was good, because it had helped us create ideas, and so it all worked very well. And we made our mark really in Germany first, and we were very, very big in Germany when we first started, within that circuit anyway. And so we sort of broke there for a while, and all our major work was in Europe, and then we started doing better in England, and then you know, of course, it would be English. They waited till we got an album out and it'd done well. Then we started getting work, and then we started refusing it, and because it got silly, and then we came to America for after the Paranoid album.
Direction-wise, right from the beginning, Sabbath had a different slant than any other band that was out, and there was a sense of foreboding and an energy that was present in just about every song on the very first album, and certainly the Hammer drove it home on the next three. What were you looking for to put together that you came up with the genius arrangement of Black Sabbath?
I can't really say. I was looking for it. It's just something that I just came up with that riff, and the first one I ever wrote, the first riff was Wicked World. That was the first one I'd done, and that was an amalgamation of different ideas, jazzy, come heavy stuff, and that was the first one I'd done. I thought, oh, I like this, and you know, I had to go another one, and Black Sabbath was the next one I'd done. And we thought then, it sounds really weird, this. It's really, I like it, but it sounds really different. And it just fell into place. It worked. I had done a vocal melody over it, which really went. And that was it. And we tried it in one of these clubs, blues clubs we used to play in England. And we thought, well, let's try those two new numbers we've got and see what happens. And everybody was just shocked when they heard them, because they'd never heard anything like that before. You have to read in 12-bar blues all night, and suddenly you come out with this stuff, you know. Exactly. And they were quite shocked, and afterwards they come up and said, oh, what was them songs? They were, you know, really great and really, you know, different. And I mean, we knew we were onto something very different then, but it was just something that motivated us at the time, and I used to come out with those sort of ideas. I never looked back then. I just kept writing, you know, riffs and whatever.
And lyrically, it was Geezer who matched up. I mean, because the lyrics go so well with the music. I mean, it is a package, you know. And the Black Sabbath sound, it wasn't like the words of Led Zeppelin, and they were singing about lust and love and things like that. It was like the real deal. It was the hardcore realities of the world matched with these kind of foreboding riffs. And it was Geezer, or
yeah, well, I think mainly Geezer, yeah, because. I mean, if you play a riff that's very doomy, and I mean, like Black Sabbath, for instance, it throws a light on what sort of way the lyrics should go. And Geezer and myself were very into a lot of the darker side sort of stuff anyway, as far as movies, and we used to go there a lot, Geezer and myself, to the late night showings, and we used to get involved in all sorts of things in them days. And any kind of occult or any kind of thing that we didn't know about, we were interested in, and I think that's, you know, the way the music went at that point.
The name of the band even comes from the Boris Karloff film, correct? The Black Sabbath film?
Yes, it does. It's and why that was because we were called Earth before that, and we were booked one day at a wrong venue, and we found out there's another band called Earth, and they were a pop band, and we got all sorts of problems. We turned up at this venue, and there's people, it was like a ballroom type venue, and they all come out in bow ties, and we go, oh God, what's going on here? And we turned up like scruffs and long hair, and they looked at us as though we were like garbage, you know. And the one guy said, oh, I like your new record. I went, oh, thanks. And we didn't have a record out at that time. I thought, what's he on about? We haven't got a record out. And we thought there was something wrong then, and we saw these with the bow ties on and stuff. And anyway, we went in, and the place was full of them, all with suits and bow ties on. And we thought, this is never right. And anyway, we went on and played, and quite honestly, we died. We absolutely died a death. They took us off. Because we were the wrong band, you know, they were expecting to dance. And
on comes Black Sabbath.
Yeah, so it was totally wrong. So we said, well, that's it. And the guy wouldn't pay us and all that stuff, so we nicked all his stuff. All the stuff from the back room we took with us. Took his carpets, we took everything, the kettles, anything that was there we took with us. And what we done after that, we thought, that's it, we don't want that again, so we want a name that nobody else is going to get. And so we called ourselves Black Sabbath.
And boy, did it stick. And before that, before Earth, there were two bands. It was like Rare Breed and Mythology, correct?
Yeah, well, I was in a band with Bill Ward. We were called Mythology, and Geezer was in another band with Ozzy called the Rare Breed, and we just got together, really.
Isn't there one other weird name you went under too, but like...
Polka Talk.
That's it. What is it again?
The Polka Talk Blues Band, which died as soon as we'd started it because we hated it, and it was just a bit of a joke, really, at first. And there were 6 of us at the time. We had a sax player and a slide guitar player, which we soon got rid of, and stuck as a 4-piece.
The early work there, I remember in '92 getting to hear another radio program that you and Geezer were on, and you guys talked briefly about the concept of a boxed set, which would encompass, Black Sabbath through the years, recent cuts, as well as maybe something that was early and previously unreleased. Are there a few songs that you have in your archives that we've never heard before?
I think I've got some at home in my studio, a couple of tracks maybe that we've never put out. I'd have to look. I've got some somewhere, I think, and there are. And I think there are. I think Castle Communications will be releasing a box set at some point because they've now bought the catalogue. And
so there was a song called "The Rebel" as well. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I do. That was one of the first tracks we ever done, "The Rebel," but that was crap, really.
Yeah, it was quite different. But in your first video, "History," which is an excellent, overview of the early Sabbath, did you have much to do with the putting together of that, the story of Black Sabbath?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we were to do with all that. Yeah.
And you gave them the Cal Jam cut to use. We have "Children of the Grave" is from Cal Jam '74.
Yeah, we gave them they picked up either from us or from somebody else the cuts to use in that video.
Because in that video they show some unreleased Sabbath footage. They show something, and they mention the Rebel. And so you have a lot of Black Sabbath fans going, "What, the Rebel? I've never seen that on one of my albums." Yeah,
the Rebel was it was nothing to do with us, actually. It was a track written by a guy in England, a friend of ours called Norman Haynes, who was he was in another band at the time called Locomotive. It used to do quite well. And he got this track, and this manager we had at that time kept going, "Oh, you must record this song, you must record this song." So we just went in and did it. We never really liked it that much, but we just done it.
You can kind of tell when you're watching the video because you don't really play the song. I mean, you play it, but it's very brief in the video. You kind of name it, show some video footage. The band, I mentioned the Cal Jam concert. The band was doing a lot of festival shows then, because festival shows, as you probably know, are big again. I mean, there's Lollapalooza, there's the Horde Festival, there's even a world music one, Africa Fest, which we have in the United States. And was Sabbath doing a lot of big festival shows at that point?
Well, we had done a lot of big festivals, yeah. We'd done probably some of the biggest festivals in the world going at the time. But at that time when we done the Cal Jam we were off for months before that, and we weren't going to do the California Jam. And I was at home, and we were all at home, and I had a phone call saying, you've got to come, because we weren't, as far as we knew, it was off and we weren't playing. And so we'd forgotten about it, and one of our crew was out there, and because there was a problem going on with who was going to close this show and all this stuff, and we said, look, we're out of it, we don't want to get involved in this. And the guy from out front, our out front sound guy at the time, called me and says, look, you've got to get over here, there's thousands and thousands of kids that's come to see you. And I said, what do you mean? I said, how am I going to get everybody together now? We haven't rehearsed, we haven't played for 4 months, 5 months or whatever it was at that time. And so I had to phone everybody up at some unearthly hour. And nobody believed me. I phoned Ozzy and he goes, you're lying. I said, I'm not, I'm serious. And I phoned Bill and he thought I was joking. I said, I'm serious, we've got to get ready and get out. Let's get out there and do this show because they're waiting to see us. And when I finally convinced everybody that we should be out there, we went out there and basically arrived and there a day and then went on stage and played. And it was a bit nerve-wracking trying to remember the songs because we hadn't played for a long time, and we'd been doing our own thing for all that time,
Was that a big peak there that year, '74?
we were going through quite a big peak anyway. I mean, we were doing some major shows at that time. And we did decide to take a year off, you know, and that popped up, and we done that. But we were doing a lot of big stuff, and we played a lot of big shows. We actually did play one show that so many people come that we couldn't play. We couldn't get in to play. So like 500,000 people turned up at this one festival we played at, and the weather was so bad we couldn't fly in, and we couldn't drive in because everybody just left their cars on the freeway and stuff. So it was just one jam.
An American festival?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was now. And we couldn't get in to play. And I remember sitting in the bar with Bob Height from Canned Heat, and none of us, because we were both headlining there, and neither one of us could get in. So we both sat in the bar and got drunk. It was just unbelievable because the fog had come down. You couldn't get an helicopter in. You couldn't drive there. There was no way of getting in because it was like 30, 40 mile away from where we were staying. And it was just a nightmare.
Who were some of the other people that you would spend? You mentioned Canned Heat. Who were some of the other people that you guys were out on the road with and performing with, or maybe that you're friendly with in the rock world?
Well, I'm friendly with quite a few now. Well, years ago, I mean, we took out Boston on their first tour. They toured with us for about a year. And then we took Van Halen out on their first tour. They toured with us for 8 months, world tours. Ted Nugent, Bob Seger, ZZ Top. You name them, we've had them out there.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. A whole host of them.
We brought Yes over to America on there for their first tour. They supported us for about 6 months, I suppose. And, a lot of bands.
Any dates ever with Pink Floyd? I know you did that special version of Smoke on the Water a few years back, which David Gilmour got involved with.
Yeah, I've done a couple of things with Dave Gilmour. A couple of different tracks. Well, in fact, I've done three different shows with him now. Yeah, we do. We get together sometimes and have a play. Gilmour and Brian May and myself and whoever else is floating about at the time, we do something.
You've got on-stage jams ever with any of these people? That's one thing people always, when they collect live recordings by bands, they sometimes are looking for special guests playing with them. Did you ever get together on stage with Dave and perform in front of crowds?
Not really, no. We didn't we haven't done that sort of thing. We've played in studios together and, you know, done interviews occasionally. We've done one interview together, I think. But we haven't done actual shows. We played on one show together, but not together as the same, you know, with each other.
And Brian May, has he gone out and jammed?
Brian May's been up. I usually grab him up when he comes to see us a lot, you know. And I'll go and see him when I'm about, because he's one of my best friends, Brian.
When you're not on the road, Tony, do you hang out in England a lot? Like, where do you prefer to stay?
Well, I live in England, so I stay there, and when we're not on the road, I usually do get together with these friends, you know, and we go out, and Bev Bevan's another one of my best friends, and from ELO.
Mm-hmm. Who also played with Sabbath on the Born Again tour?
Yeah, who also played with us, and Ian Gillan's one of my best friends. And so what we generally do is, when I'm at home, we get together, and if everybody's off tour, which is very rare these days, and we all go out and we have a big party, and, you know, we get together and have a few drinks and have a good time, you know.
Were you a partier as a kid? When you were in high school, were you a hellraiser?
I wouldn't say I was in high school. They wanted to get rid of me out of school. I was virtually thrown out because I was a nuisance, and I think I've always been in trouble since I was a kid, yeah. And yeah, I mean, I've always been into something, I suppose.
Always kind of getting into trouble, and is that's kind of like the Sabbath image?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, when we did start Sabbath originally, we were always in trouble then, you know, because everybody was very mischievous at the time, and we'd all do stuff that you wouldn't even think you'd get away with, really. I mean, you'd be thrown in jail and key threw away from people as a quarters most of the time. Some of the stuff we did do in the early days.
A lot of practical joking. You've set Bill's beard on fire at least once, right?
Yes, I've actually set Bill on fire himself, and he had to go to hospital quite bad. He had third-degree burns. The one time I was messing about with playing, and I said to Bill, we were doing Heaven and Hell, and in the studio, and I got some alcohol, and I said to Bill, "Can I set you on fire, Bill?" Just jokingly, and he says, "Well, no, not just at the minute." He said, "I'll be back," and I forgot all about it. I mean, it was all. I mean, this is how silly it was, really. And Bill came back about an hour later and says, "Oh, right, I'm going to go home now. Do you want to set me on fire or what?" I said, "Okay." So I picked up the big bottle of alcohol, tipped it all over him. You know, the rubbing alcohol, the alcohol from the studio, pure alcohol, and I lit a match, and he just went up like you wouldn't believe, Vroomf. And he was in agony, and I couldn't stop it. And I thought he was joking, and he's rolling on the floor, and I'm still tipping stuff on him, and he's burning.
You're pouring more alcohol on him?
Yeah, and all his clothes, because this alcohol is soaked into his clothes, and all his clothes are on fire. And so we tried to roll him on the floor, roll him in, and he wouldn't go out. He couldn't go out. He kept setting fire again. Oh, God, and I felt so bad after that. I don't even know. I was stupid, really. And he had to go to hospital, and, oh, God, he was really badly burnt. And then his mother phoned me up and says, "You stupid so-and-so, so-and-so, about time you grew up and act your age." And I didn't know what to say. I felt so bad about it all. And I went to see him in hospital. And anyway, when he came back, when he was, you know, he came back in crutches and stuff, and oh, God, it was awful. I felt really bad about it, because that joke sort of really backfired, you know.
Yeah, literally.
It backfired, literally, yeah.
And so you've changed direction a number of times with your sound and your music. You're back. It's 1995. You're on the road. It's the United States, and it's the summertime, and you're playing these shows. Are you? What do you see for where you're trying to take Sabbath now?
Well, we're just basically out to play the new album, and I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. That's where it's at these days. I'm out there. I mean, I've done most of the things you could ever do, and I'd like to see the album, of course, be received very well, and fans to enjoy it, and of course come to the shows. But I'm enjoying being out playing and being on the road, and I'm enjoying it more than I have for a long time, because a lot of the tours we've had over the past years have been problems, and we've got a great lineup here, and everybody gets on really well, and we can enjoy what we do, and everybody wants to make a better show all the time, so everybody's trying to improve, which is great. I mean, in the past lineups we've had, some of them have been, "Oh no, we're not playing tonight, I don't want to play tonight, I want the night off," or "Let's cut the show short," and that attitude, which I hated, you know. And so with this lineup, it's great, because everybody wants to do the best and make a good show and enjoy it, and we do, and we have a good laugh. It's like, you know, a step back in a lot of ways as far as enjoyment, because in the early days we had that excitement.
Yeah, that energy pushing you on.
And then we lost it as time went on. But now I feel as though we've got that attitude back.
Songs that people may hear this summer on the road?
Yeah, well, it's a selection of stuff from old, of course, you've got to. And again, we enjoy playing them.
Any breakout songs?
How do you mean?
Like last tour we had NIB for the first time in a while. We had Into the Void. What kind of, anything like that, those kind of numbers?
There's a couple. Those particular ones are not in it, this tour, but there's a couple of others you'll see.
Tony keeps the veil around the set list. No, that's good, though. I'll be in anticipation. It's Tony Iommi here, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too.
Cool, right on. And it's WBCN, the Rock of Boston, wrapping it up with Tony Iommi, a true pioneer in rock and roll. Black Sabbath is back, and catch them when you can. It's 104.